pills, that is not a headline number inflated for impact. That is the verified seizure count from a single coordinated federal operation that concluded in the early hours of a Tuesday morning across 5 American states. It is, by every measurable standard, the largest fentanyl bust in the history of the Drug Enforcement Administration. 16 individuals are in federal custody. The distribution network they operated, according to prosecutors, was responsible for pumping lethal doses of synthetic opioids into communities in California, Arizona, Nevada, Texas, and Colorado. And the organization behind all of it carries a name that federal law enforcement has been targeting with everything it has for the past 3 years: the Sinaloa Cartel. This is the full story of how Operation Escalante, the multi-month investigation that produced this seizure, came together, what it found, and why the DEA is calling it a turning point in the war against synthetic drug trafficking in the United States. To understand why this bust matters, you need to understand what fentanyl has done to this country over the past decade. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid approximately 100 times more potent than morphine. A lethal dose is measured in micrograms quantities, so small they are invisible to the naked eye. When it first appeared in significant volumes in the illicit drug supply around 2013, it was primarily used to adulterate heroin, making small quantities stretch further. Dealers could buy a kilogram of fentanyl for a fraction of the cost of a kilogram of heroin, cut it in, and increase their margins dramatically. The problem was that the margin for error between a dose that got a user high and a dose that stopped their heart was essentially zero. By 2020, fentanyl had largely replaced heroin in the American drug supply. By 2023, it was responsible for more overdose deaths in the United States than every other drug combined. The CDC estimates that fentanyl and fentanyl analogs killed over 74,000 Americans in 2024 alone. That is more than 200 people every single day. And virtually all of the fentanyl driving those numbers traces back to the same supply chain precursor chemicals manufactured in China, shipped to Mexico, synthesized into pills and powder in Sinaloa Cartel-controlled labs, then smuggled across the southern border and distributed through networks embedded in American cities. Operation Escalante was born out of a specific intelligence break that DEA analysts at the El Paso Intelligence Center identified in the spring of 2025. A confidential informant with deep connections to a Sinaloa distribution cell operating in the Phoenix, Arizona metro area began providing actionable intelligence about the cell's supply chain. What made this informant uniquely valuable was not knowledge of street-level distribution. It was knowledge of the logistics layer, the warehousing, the transport coordination, the financial flows that connected the Phoenix cell to cells in 4 other states. The Sinaloa Cartel's American distribution infrastructure is not organized the way most people imagine it. It is not a top-down hierarchy where a single boss in Mexico gives orders to lieutenants in American cities. It is a franchise model. Independent cells purchase product from Sinaloa-controlled wholesale suppliers at the border, then operate autonomously within their assigned geographic territory. Each cell handles its own local distribution, its own payment collection, and its own security. The only contact between cells is through shared logistics providers, the people who move product between cities and between the border and distribution hubs. Operation Escalante targeted that logistics layer specifically, not the street-level dealers, not even the cell leaders. The logistics network that made the entire distribution infrastructure function. Over 11 months, DEA agents working alongside the FBI, Homeland Security investigations, IRS criminal investigation, and local law enforcement task forces in 5 states built a comprehensive map of that logistics network. Court documents filed in connection with the 16 arrests describe a system of 17 warehouse facilities across the 5-state region, a fleet of commercial vehicles including 8 semi-trucks and 23 passenger vehicles equipped with custom-built hidden compartments, and a money laundering operation that processed an estimated $240 million in drug proceeds annually through a combination of cash-intensive businesses and cryptocurrency transactions. The leader of the logistics network was identified in the indictment as Herberto Salazar Amaya, a 36-year-old Mexican national who had been living under a false identity in the Phoenix area since 2020. Salazar Amaya had no prior criminal record in the United States. He had established himself as the owner of a small commercial cleaning company with contracts at several Phoenix area businesses. The cleaning company was real. It employed actual workers. It paid taxes. It was also, according to federal investigators, the primary mechanism through which Salazar Amaya laundered drug proceeds, using inflated cleaning contracts and fictitious payroll to cycle cash through the business and produce clean income that could be transferred to accounts in Mexico. The operation that brought down the network began at 3:47 in the morning. Simultaneously, across 5 states, DEA agents and task force officers executed 31 search warrants targeting the 17 warehouse facilities, 11 vehicles, 6 residential addresses, and 7 business locations connected to the network. The coordination required to execute 31 simultaneous warrants across a multi-time zone area without any single target being tipped off is itself an extraordinary logistical achievement. The DEA's Special Operations Division managed the timeline, with agents holding position at each location until a central command post in El Paso issued the go signal. What they found inside the warehouses is what produced the record-breaking seizure numbers. The 17 facilities collectively contained 3,218,000 fentanyl pills pressed into counterfeit pharmaceutical forms, designed to look identical to legitimate oxycodone 30 milligram tablets. The pills were packaged in lots of 1,000, sealed in vacuum compressed bags, and stored in temperature-controlled units that the cleaning company had rented under commercial cleaning supply cover. Also seized, 296 pounds of fentanyl powder, 81 kilograms of methamphetamine, 21 kilograms of cocaine, and 49 firearms, including several semi-automatic rifles equipped with illegal conversion devices. The financial seizure was equally significant. DEA agents recovered approximately $4 million in cash from the warehouse facilities and residential locations. Cryptocurrency wallets connected to the operation contained an additional $1.3 million in digital assets. And the IRS Criminal Investigation Unit identified and froze 14 bank accounts across 6 financial institutions that together held approximately $6.2 million in proceeds traced to the drug trafficking enterprise. 16 people were arrested that morning. Heriberto Salazar Amaya was taken into custody at his residence in Chandler, Arizona. 3 other individuals were arrested in Phoenix, 2 in Tucson, 4 in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, 2 in Las Vegas, 3 in Denver, and 1 in San Diego. 2 additional suspects identified in the indictment remain at large. The DEA has confirmed that both are believed to have fled to Mexico following the operation and has issued extradition requests through Interpol. The charges filed against the 16 defendants include conspiracy to distribute fentanyl, conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine, money laundering conspiracy, and possession of firearms in furtherance of drug trafficking. For Salazar, Amaya, and 3 other defendants identified as organizers of the enterprise, federal prosecutors have added a narco-terrorism enhancement under the statute that designates the Sinaloa Cartel as a foreign terrorist organization, a designation made by the Trump administration in February of 2025. The narco-terrorism enhancement alone carries a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years and a maximum of life imprisonment to run consecutively with any other sentence imposed. The DEA's acting administrator, Robert Murphy, called the operation a battlefield victory at a press conference held the morning of the arrests. He framed it in terms that reflect the current administration's approach to cartel enforcement. This is not a law enforcement problem. It is a national security problem, and it will be treated accordingly. That framing has consequences for how these prosecutions proceed. Defense attorneys representing some of the 16 defendants have already indicated they will challenge the narco-terrorism enhancement, arguing that applying terrorism statutes to drug trafficking activities sets a dangerous legal precedent that could expand federal prosecution authority well beyond its intended scope. That legal battle will take years to resolve. What will not take years is the impact on the specific distribution network that Operation Escalante dismantled. 17 warehouses are dark. 31 commercial vehicles have been seized. The financial infrastructure, the cleaning company, the bank accounts, the crypto wallets has been frozen, and the logistics coordinator who made it all function is in federal custody in Maricopa County. But here's the question that every serious analyst of the American drug crisis will tell you matters more than the seizure numbers. Dismantling a distribution network does not eliminate demand. It creates a vacuum. And vacuums in the drug supply get filled. The Sinaloa Cartel does not have a finite number of logistics networks. It has a model for building them, and it rebuilds. The question Operation Escalante answers is whether the federal government's enforcement tempo can outpace the cartel's reconstruction tempo. Can successive operations hit fast enough and hard enough that the cost of operating in the American market exceeds the profit? The DEA believes the answer is yes, if the enforcement is sustained and if the financial disruption is deep enough to actually hurt the cartel's operating capital rather than just its American distribution arm. The $6.2 million frozen in bank accounts is real money. The $1.3 million in crypto is real money. But the Sinaloa Cartel's estimated annual revenue from fentanyl sales in the United States alone runs into the tens of billions of dollars. 6 million is a rounding error. What is not a rounding error is the intelligence value of 16 people in federal custody, some of whom are already in negotiations with prosecutors. The DEA's most powerful tool against cartel logistics networks has never been the seizures. It has been the cooperation agreements that seizures produce. When 16 people face the possibility of life sentences under narcoterrorism statutes, the calculus of loyalty to an organization that cannot reach them from Mexico changes. The information that comes out of those cooperation agreements, about supply routes, about financial accounts, about personnel, above the logistics level, is what fuels the next operation. 3 million pills will not be reaching American communities. 74,000 people died last year from fentanyl. The math of what those 3 million pills could have done, distributed across 5 states, measured in individual lethal doses, is not math anyone in law enforcement wants to calculate out loud. But it is the number that justifies 11 months of investigative work, 31 simultaneous warrants, and a coordinated takedown that involved 5 federal agencies and law enforcement officers in 5 states, all moving at exactly 3:47 in the morning. The investigation continues. This is Federal Watch Network.